taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Volvo XC60. Now, this is the hybrid version of the ride, but still you're going to have the same basic layout regardless of the XC60 that you're in. So let's dive in. I'll show you everything that you need to know. First thing, along the very top, you can see if you've got an active data connection, and that's going to let you use live maps and a few other features. You can download offline maps though, and I'll show you how that's done in a moment. There's a little tab along the top you can swipe down in order to jump into individual user profiles. So if there are multiple people driving, you definitely want to set profiles up. And the big benefit there is that it's going to remember if you're logged into your Google account, if you've saved previous destinations for your maps, it's going to remember your presets and so many other things. So if there are multiple people driving the vehicle, you definitely want to make sure you set up individual profiles. And then if there were any active notifications, that would also show up there for you. Along the top right side, you can see which user profile is logged in along with your current time. And then you've got your tray. So I want you to think of this one more like your home screen, because you've got this little icon view or a home screen. And you can see here, there are a few key options along the side. So when we go to this option here, you've got your maps, SiriusXM, and things like that. So these are essentially duplicated here. It's just like a quicker access tray instead. Whatever active option you've got there, if you were to swipe across, you'd have some additional options. If you were to swipe the other way, you'd have the other options that were on that individual line, and you can customize it. So let's say if you wanted to change the layout, you've got the flexibility to do it. So you do a press and hold in order to drag it to any location instead. Back on this screen, you've got SiriusXM. You can swipe across for different media there. If Apple CarPlay was set up, that would show up there. So you've got different phone options, car status info, and things like that. You've also got, as I mentioned, this one here, in order to get to more of your quick launch icon tray. There's a 360 camera button down there too, and you can zoom in to individual spots, back to the 360 view, a side mounted view instead. You can disable the parking sensors and then the rear auto brake. So as you go to back up, if there's an obstacle behind you, it can automatically brake, but you can disable that. You've got your climate control settings, so heated steering wheel can be toggled on this way, heated first row seats, and ventilated first row seats for the driver passenger side. You can adjust your climate this way, but if you also push in the very middle, that's going to launch you into some additional climate control settings. So you can adjust out in order to turn on your max or your rear defroster, air conditioning, have it going to your windshield face feet, some sort of Frankenstein combination, adjusting your different fan speeds there. If the passenger side was set up to something different, you could link it up to default to the driver's side instead and back down. Then you can put a little settings icon there in order to get to a boatload of additional settings, but I'll touch on that one last. And then along the side of your driver's seat, there's also a button that you can hit there, and that's going to give you some additional seat controls. So you can go up and down in order to adjust a few things. Now, this is not standard across the XC60, but if it's available for yours, you'd have it. So you've got a massage chair seat. There are a few different options. So you can get a massage for your shoulders. You can change the intensity. You can move into other options too. So if you wanted to adjust your side bolsters to make it hug your body a bit more, you can adjust the lumbar support even more, and then even extend the individual seat cushion for your legs. So it's kind of neat that you've got this available as an option, but getting the massage is really nice, and there are a few different modes that are available. I'm going to keep that going, but that's really nice. So on the screen itself, first thing I'm going to point out is going to be Maps. So this is an Android device. So you've got Google Maps built in, and it works the exact same way as it would on your phone. So you've got the option of searching for addresses this way. You can also hit the voice command prompt on the steering wheel in order to activate it there. So you can search for addresses if you'd like to that way. You can search by GPS coordinates, so latitude first, longitude second. You can search for point of interest icons. So if you wanted a coffee shop, if you wanted a gas station, things like that. So just selecting through, you can start. You can see if there are additional routes available. So you can see there, if there were multiple ways that you could get to the route that you'd like, you could adjust it that way. You can avoid things on the route as well. So if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries, you'd have the flexibility to do it. And then you can search for additional addresses too. So we've got our main route going here. So as we go, you can then search along the bottom. So let's say if you wanted to stop at a gas station first. So gas station before you get your Timmies, you've got the flexibility to do it. So we've selected through. You can then add in a stop if you'd like to. So you can see there, we've got our turn-by-turn directions going. And confirm. you're set to go. And it's that easy being able to set up a route. And then one nice thing is that while you can look over here to see what's going on, inside of your cluster screen, you've also got a full mapping cluster view. So there's a button on the steering wheel that you can hit there in order to jump into just a turn-by-turn view or full mapping cluster instead. I mean, that looks solid. And then one nicer thing is that if you've got a head-up display inside of your XC60, you'd also have those turn-by-turn directions showing up inside of the head-up display. So you can see it in the HUD, you can see it in the cluster, or through the infotainment system instead, which is kind of nice. You could exit out if you'd like. You can remove either the next stop that you've set up or fully exit navigation. You can hit this little gear icon if you wanted to show satellite view instead. So if you prefer that one, showing 3D buildings. If you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries in general, you could. Downloading offline maps is also useful because if you know you're going somewhere where you might not have a data connection, you've got the flexibility to be able to download maps, and it would still work like a traditional GPS. It just would take a little bit longer to load. Different options. You can mute out notifications. So if you don't want to get turn-by-turn notifications, you can just get alerts or both. You can change up your heading to different views. It's got full pinch to zoom capabilities. And one really nice thing is that you can hit this little guy on the top right side, and that's going to be for signing into Google. So if you've been using Google Maps on your phone, you'd be able to sign in this way. And what that's going to do is pull up any addresses that you've previously searched for on your phone. So you'd essentially be mirroring your Google account on the device here, which is kind of neat. But that's using factory navigation. Like I said, you could type in addresses, search by point of interest icons, you could search by GPS coordinates, there are saved addresses, previously viewed addresses, and things like that. Heading back home, you've also got full YouTube video playback support. And it's strictly when you're stopped, so you can't be watching videos as you drive. But I mean, being able to watch videos while you're parked, if you're just trying to kill time waiting to pick somebody up, you've got that flexibility. And it's also got full screen, well, as full screen as it's going to get capability. But I think that that's really neat that you've got that available as an option inside of this ride. If your phone was connected, you've got messages, there's a driving journal, Bluetooth media player. So if your phone was hooked up over Bluetooth, you could set it up that way. You've also got radio, and it's strictly going to be FM inside of this ride. So you've got your stations versus your favorites. So stations are exactly that. It's all of the stations that are available in your geographic area. You could hit the little star icon if you wanted to save things in as a favorite. And one nice thing is that when you've got favorites set up, you'd be able to use the pad here in order to jump between your different favorited stations. You've got a volume rocker you can adjust here. You can adjust your volume down the center there instead. Play pause in order to mute out your audio down along the very bottom. If you hit the little icon there, that's going to bring this up. So if artwork was available, so if the station broadcasted, it would be available. You can change between your different stations that way instead. So it's straightforward. And then one nice thing, 97.7 FM.
Got it. This is 97.7 FM.
You can also use your voice in order to be able to change to different stations instead. And that's whether it's going to be AM or even SiriusXM. So if you had a preference, you could change it out that way instead. On SiriusXM, you can see your channels, your favorites if you've saved any category views. So if you're a fan of listening to rock music, rap music, whatever the case may be. Hitting up here, oh, good song. You've got that available here as well. You can search, you can hit this in order to show all of your SiriusXM information too. So if you've got an existing SiriusXM account, you can easily link it this way. But that's using radio inside of the ride. And next up is going to be adding in a phone. And we're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So you can see there, no phones are connected. So we're just going to go connect and pair new device. And we're just waiting for XC60 to show up on the phone. It happens sometimes, so we'll just go and there we go. So immediately pops up. So if that ever happens, just turn your Bluetooth off, back on again, and you can connect for either the phone or the media, so you can do both. So we're just going to hit next there, and it'll take a second to pair, and the pin numbers on the screen match up, so we're just going to hit pair there. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. Obviously, if it was yours, you could say yes. And it's done and continue. So nothing exciting there. And let's just cancel that for a second. So your phone is now connected. So if we were to head back, you're connected to your phone. So your favorites, recents, contacts, and things like that would show up. You can search the phone. You can swap devices. So if you've got multiple phones connected, or you can hit the little gear icon here in order to change your contact order or your start screen. So when you launch the phone app, does it launch into your favorites, recents, contacts, or keypad? And that's these screens here. So you've got these 4 different options. So when you launch into your phone, what's the default one going to be? So if you want to launch into your contacts, you'd have that flexibility. Then you can start dialing in if you'd like to. Hopping back home, you can hop back into your phone this way. And then you've got the flexibility of being able to connect to Apple CarPlay. Strictly going to be a USB cable. So all we're going to do is down the center stack there, and plug the USB cable in, and then opposite end of the cable, just going to plug it in to the phone. There we go. In just a second. Perfect. Do you want to allow CarPlay while the phone is locked? Yes, we want to allow that. Otherwise, when you lock the phone, CarPlay wouldn't work. But you can see there, we are fully connected. And the screen is incredibly responsive, which is great. You can head back home if you'd like to, hop back into CarPlay this way. And I want you to think of this as the CarPlay home screen, and then there's an icon view instead. But you can swipe across to get to either way. It's your map application, search, and then your media as well. Along the very bottom, you've got your current time, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last, and then your current connection level. You've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze that you can use right through Apple CarPlay as well. And it works the exact same. My favorite map application, though, is Waze. And a few key reasons why. So as you're driving along, if there are accidents, people can report that. If there's construction, if there are police pulling people over, people mark that off on the map. And you can mark things off yourself. So if you see a speed trap, if you want to give people a heads up of hazards like cars on shoulders and things like that, you've got that flexibility. But that's going to come down to a matter of preference. Apple CarPlay does not have support for video playback, so you can listen to all sorts of audio, so things like YouTube Music, Live One's a radio app, Hoopla's a library app, you can listen to your podcasts and things like that as well. So there are different options available. It's nice. Flow is going to be a charge app, but there are a lot of options. You can even go through settings in order to customize things. So if you wanted to adjust out your appearance, if you wanted to change your wallpaper out, you'd have that flexibility as well. Then if you do a long button push and hold on the steering wheel, that's going to activate your Siri assistant. So a short button push activates the car built-in assistant, but that longer button push activates Siri on your phone instead. Then you can easily hop back into CarPlay that way if you'd like to, and back down. Then, inside of your phone, you've got the flexibility to customize things a little bit. So if you go into your settings, general, and then CarPlay, all you have to do is find your vehicle, and when you do, you can forget it, customize, and allow CarPlay while the phone is locked. But let's say if you can't even get to this step because your phone is giving you issues or the infotainment's giving you issues, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a pretty comprehensive walkthrough explaining some typical CarPlay fixes. Then, if you wanted to, so you've got hamburger icon along the side, you can use that in order to be able to rearrange the icons. So if you like a certain setup, you've got that flexibility. Anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it from the screen, and it fully removes it. It saves it at the bottom though. So you could add it back in if you'd like to, but if you've played around with the layout too much and you don't like what you've done, along the top right side of the phone, there's a little reset button. You're going to reset your screen layout, and 3, 2, 1, it has reset us back to the factory default layout there instead. So there's a lot of flexibility. Hopping back home, I mean, if you wanted to disconnect from CarPlay because it's wired, you just disconnect there. And then if you hop back into your phone, no device is connected. But if we hit the swap button, oh, there we go. So it's just fully reconnected now. But that's how you set up an iPhone device inside the Volvo XC60. Setting up an Android is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this screen, if you were back on the home screen, you're just going to jump into phone. If you didn't have a phone connected, that wouldn't show up, but you can easily just hit swap and then pair new device. And then on your phone, all you're going to do is wait for XC60 to pop up. There we go. So we've got the S9 Plus. We're going to connect through for both phone and for media. So let's just hit next there. There we go. PIN numbers match up. So we're going to hit OK there. Allow access to contacts and messages. And this is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. And we're now fully connected. Now, one nice thing is that you do have Bluetooth capabilities inside of both Android and iPhone devices. But the downside to this screen, There's no Android Auto support. So there's literally no way you can set up Android devices inside of this ride. But as I mentioned, this essentially is a full Android device anyways. So you could log into the Play Store to download the majority of apps that you would use on Android anyways. It's just that no Android Auto support, which is kind of mind-boggling, but still, you've at least got the flexibility of being able to have either or connected. So you've got Bluetooth device connections. Now, you can obviously only have Apple CarPlay set up, but if you've got multiple phones connected, you could also do a mix and match. So if you wanted to have one phone connected for phone calls and one phone connected for media, you can do that. It's really straightforward. You could pair an additional device or edit your devices if you wanted to delete. So delete and forget, and you're set to go. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the XC60. Heading back home from there, you've got your Google Assistant, so you can push the button there to get to your assistant. That's probably the weirdest way that you could do it. You could also just hit the voice command prompt in order to be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice, adjust the climate using your voice as well. So there are different options available. But you could also say, hey Google, in order to launch into your assistant that way. You can check your car status to see what's going on with your oil and your tire pressure. So as of right now, you can see, just updating value. So it'll take a second there, but this is a brand new car. And then you can see there what's going on with your tire pressure, but we're all good. Back home, air quality. So some versions of the XC60 also do have, let's just continue there. Yeah. Back. Okay, perfect. So a built-in particulate filter. So it's not standard across the board, but it's essentially going to give you cleaner quality air inside. Outside air quality, so if your location was shared, it would be able to see what the outside air quality is like as well, just to give you an idea. It's actually kind of neat because in high pollen season, it gives you a heads up as well. And then Play Store. So you've got the flexibility of being able to easily sign into your Google account, and I'll show you the benefit here. So what we're going to do, so sign in, it'll take a second. You're going to get a QR code that pops up. So you're just going to scan it on your phone and launch in. There we go. It's going to take a second in order to be able to set up. Okay. And it'll take a second here. So just going through my Google account, and all you're doing is just signing into the phone. Perfect. There we go. And you can see there, we are fully connected. And the benefit now, we can download different apps. So I love using Waze. So if you're a fan of using Waze and other apps, you'd have the flexibility to download them right to the vehicle. So there are different games that you'd be able to download. So big benefit there. Obviously, when you're parked, you can watch Prime Video, different games and things like that. You can search for apps as well. So if you just wanted to search for games, you could search through and see what's available. So if you wanted to kind of kill some time while you're parked, you'd have the flexibility to be able to do it. Actually, I wonder what kind of games would be available. I'm a big fan of Sudoku. No. It doesn't look like, that's still. You've got a boatload of different options. Car fireplace is available there too. So if you're a bigger fan of using certain apps, you'd have the flexibility to be able to download things. So not every app that you'd find on the Android Auto side of things, but you've at least got the option of customizing the screen a little bit. Waze should be, there we go. So it's installed now, which means it's on the home screen here. So you can see Waze has been added in. So you'd then be able to readjust these if you'd like to. So like I said, you don't have full support for Android Auto, but you can at least customize this and add some other apps in. You've got your owner's manual along the very bottom too. So if this video didn't help out, you can see all of the different options that are available inside the vehicle. And one cool thing, I guess even looking in the bottom here, so symbols. So if you're getting any sort of weird messages inside of the cluster screen, you'd be able to take a look and see what any of those symbols are. It's actually kind of useful if you're not sure about oil quality or when you should be doing oil changes and things like that. You can search that way as well. So that's the basics of the screen there, with the exception of the little settings icon here that launches you into so many different things. You've got your basic driving options, so you've got a few different modes. Because this is the hybrid mode, you've got different options. So hybrid, what it's going to do is essentially going to figure out what's best for you. So is it driving in the gas version of the vehicle, or is it driving for EV instead? So when you're in the hybrid, you can get fully electric mileage there, but it is based off of your driving habits, because if you're flooring it, it's going to use the gas engine. If you're coasting, it's going to use those electric miles instead. There's a Polestar mode, and that's more of like Yeah, you can hear the engine turned on there immediately. But what the Polestar mode does is essentially is a sport mode. So it gives you way better performance, like instant acceleration. It's amazing. There's an off-road mode and a constant all-wheel drive mode as well. And when you jump between these modes, it actually changes what's going on inside of the cluster screen as well. So there are some very subtle changes that happen to the actual display. And one really neat thing is when you're in certain modes, like your off-road mode, it can actually raise and lower different parts of the vehicle too. It's kind of wild. But hybrid mode is where you want to be if you obviously want the best fuel economy inside of the ride. Battery usage, you've got auto versus hold versus charge, and the vehicle is going to determine in auto mode whether you're in the EV mode or if the gas engine's turned on instead. Hold and then charge. So charge means that the vehicle is actively going to charge the battery for you as you're driving. It's actually kind of neat because if you've got the charge enabled, so it actually shows you inside of the cluster screen what's going on. So whether that's EV locked out hold, if you want to have the auto mode, or if you want the vehicle to charge as you drive. Pilot assist as a default. And that's a very useful one because what that's going to do, there are technically two different modes as you get into the Pro Pilot system. So there'd be two different modes available. So it's either going to be a steering wheel mode, which is going to be Pro Pilot assist. So it's going to keep the vehicle perfectly balanced in your lane as you drive. And then there's just regular adaptive cruise control system. There's a lane keeping aid, which is going to nudge you back into your lane. Whether or not you get road speed information inside of the clusters, so that road sign info, you get it inside of the cluster, and then if you've got a head-up display, it can also show up inside of that display too. Do you prefer your steering wheel to be firm or a little bit looser? There's the active air suspension system, air suspension for easy entry exit. So with this one turned on, it can raise or lower the vehicle in order to make it easy for you to get in or out. There are a series of different options for sound settings. So you've got a few different modes. Do you want more of a studio mode, stage, or room mode? And then you can also have it set up for different things. Do you want it driver focused, rear focused on everybody, strictly the front or rear, whatever the case may be? Then you can adjust your treble, mid-range, and bass, and you never want to do this. Audio is going to sound terrible when everything is like that. So what I found is the treble down a bit, bass cranked a bit, and then the subwoofer up a few points tends to give pretty good audio in my opinion. But your best bet is to honestly play one of your favorite songs, and while the song is playing, tweak these settings out until it sounds perfect for you. From there, you've got some connectivity options for Bluetooth. So if you want to, you can fully disable Bluetooth. Your vehicle SIM data as well. So that's the connection level here that you can toggle on or off. So whether or not you're connected there, you do need an active data plan for that to work. Or you can connect to a Wi-Fi network at home if you wanted to download offline maps. There are a boatload of different controls here. So starting off with your headrest fold. So I think that's kind of a random one, but by hitting that, you can get both headrest to fold for the second row seats. Wiper service position is going to lock your wipers up. So if you need to change the wiper blades out, that's how you're going in order to make it happen. Toggle that one back off again. Mirror tilt when you're in reverse. So if you've got that setting enabled, when you throw yourself into reverse, the mirrors are going to tilt down for you. You've got mirror auto dimming. So do you want your rear view and your side view mirrors to automatically dim if there's a donkey in behind you flashing their high beams? Let's see here. Rear seat reminder. So when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to remind you to check the back seats. Do you get any sort of a visual or audible lock when you go to actually lock using the key fob? When you go to unlock the doors from a safety perspective, do you just want the driver's door to become unlocked, or do you want all doors to become unlocked? Do you want the sunroof curtain to automatically close? You've got different options for trips inside of the display. So as of right now, there's nothing showing up. But when you've got that enabled, so you can have it in an auto mode or manual mode instead. And you've got the flexibility of being able to reset these. There's a button on the tip of the left stick. So you can reset the manual counter there if you wanted to. So you just do a press and hold. If you hit the little middle button in the steering wheel, you've also got your trip counter. So your trip manual versus your trip auto. With the head-up display, you can toggle it off if you want to, but with it turned on, you can do things like adjusting the brightness and then the height. So down the center there, so you can see there, you're going to be using the buttons along the steering wheel here in order to adjust out the brightness and the height of the head-up display. So you could move it up or down. and adjust the brightness. I always recommend maximum brightness. That's going to come down to preference, but with maximum brightness, it's easy to see it in the daytime and at night, and then moving it up or down just based off of your own personal height. And then hitting OK on the steering wheel to lock that into place. From there, you can also adjust so you can rotate the head-up display. So if you tend to sit one way or the other, you can adjust it out that way. Let's see here. Welcome lighting. When you go to approach the vehicle, do the lights come on? Yay or nay? Profiles, again, very useful if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, but you can connect a key to your individual profile. You can lock out the screen as well using either a pattern or a pin. So a big benefit there is that people can't just log into your account to look at all of your saved addresses and things like that. You can also have, for your care key, you can set a certain speed limit too, so people can't speed excessively. Useful if you want to make sure mechanics can't go for a joyride in your car. You've got basic privacy information. There is an ads manager here. I've personally never seen any ads inside of any Volvo vehicle that I've driven. Little concerning that it's there, but I wouldn't say you have any issue worrying about that at all. Let's see, Google information, nothing exciting. Account activities, password manager, they're basics here. And then this is a big one. So you've got all of your general information. You can change out your language. And because it's a Google device, you've got so many different languages available here. So a lot of different options based off of your geographic area. And from here, keyboard, you can adjust out to different keyboard types, text to speech. You can adjust the date and time. And some of these things are grayed out because you're in the auto mode. But if you deselect auto, you can manually set the date or the time, lock it into auto, and then you've got your time zone. The only time I would recommend getting out of auto time zone is if you live somewhere where you straddle a time zone and it constantly flips you from one time zone or the other. So you'd be able to permanently lock it in to any other time zone instead. And then do you prefer to use the military time instead? So the 12 versus 24-hour mode. You've got units available. So this is going to be all of your measurement units. So you've got either metric, imperial, you've got US, and that's going to adjust out what's going on inside of the cluster screen. So you can see along the very bottom there, as we move out between either metric or imperial, it changes things out. You can change it out to either liters per 100, kilometers, etc. You can change out the speed individually too. And because it's a fully digital cluster, it updates all of that for us. It's actually kind of neat. So if you're going cross-border, you've got the flexibility to adjust this. And then you can also change out your temperature. Do you want to be in either Celsius or Fahrenheit? And it's just a simple button push in order to do it. Let's see, basic about information, storage options. So this is a full Android device. So if you're downloading different apps and music and things like that to the device, you can see how much space you've used. And then there are some reset options too. So you can reset Wi-Fi, mobile, and Bluetooth. So if you're running into any issues with your phone, you can try a basic Wi-Fi reset there. You can do reset for your different app preferences, or full factory reset is going to essentially wipe the entire screen and bring you back to the factory default option there instead. And then there are a few other things. So I already mentioned this button, so that's your basic home button. But if you do a push and hold of that button for a few seconds, watch this. So it's going to bring you into a screen cleaning mode. So if you wanted to wipe down because it's got fingerprints all over it, you've got that flexibility, and then just do a button press for a few seconds in order to be able to reset. But if you do a longer push and hold, so we're just going to keep on holding for like 10 to almost 20 seconds, what it's going to do is eventually turn the screen off. So what we're doing here is a full infotainment reboot. So if you're ever running into any issues with the screen, you just keep on pushing and holding for a ridiculously long period of time. You can see there. So it's reset maps inside of the cluster screen, and it's fully rebooting the infotainment system as well. So that's what you want to do if you're running into any screen issues. So if CarPlay is not connecting properly, if any of the apps are giving you problems, things like that, you can just do a long push and hold, like I said, about 15, 20 seconds or so, in order to run through an infotainment reboot. And it's a big benefit there. Instead of doing a factory reset, we're just soft rebooting instead. It's going to take a few seconds there in order to load up, but you've done a soft reboot on the screen. And then along the very bottom, you can also turn on your four-way blinkers, your windshield versus your rear window defroster. You can change between songs. It's a volume rocker. Then you can also play or pause. And then one neat thing about the play pause button down here is that it's going to work for SiriusXM as well as for FM radio. It doesn't actually pause the song though. It essentially just acts as a mute button instead. So you'd be able to push that in if you wanted to be able to mute the audio. So I know that is a lot of information, but that's everything you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Volvo XC60.